Hi everyone, today we've got Carly Bowden. She is always at Bowden.
Bowden, but doesn't matter.
Bowden. So she's
Yeah.
from Stretch Therapy South Africa and she's a co-founder of Stretch Methods SA. So she's a stretch therapist. She's also certified in fascial stretch treatments and certified manual lymphatic drainage, which is in Santon. So I'd like to just say welcome to you and hand over to you for a little bit more detail on yourself.
Yes, I'm Carly, and like you say, I have trained in different modalities. The ones that I do focus on mainly are stretch therapy, which is assisted stretching, and manual lymphatic drainage. And the two are complementary to each other, but they can also work as standalone Stretch therapy is aimed towards people that, like, everyone knows that they should be stretching perhaps more than they are, but
Yeah.
beyond that, they don't really know quite what to do for their bodies. Sometimes when they stretch themselves, that feedback might be a little bit painful. It's something that they perhaps don't prioritize. Many people don't have that much time. They're focusing that time on their workout, whatever it is that they've got. So just like anything else, if you were to outsource your physical training through a personal trainer or a Pilates instructor, you would then also outsource your stretching to a stretch therapist, someone who's going to know how to guide your body through movement and add in more variety of movement than you might do yourself. Everyone knows they've got to stretch their hamstrings, they've got to stretch their glutes, and then they're like, done. So a stretch therapist
Yes.
will take them through a wide variety of movements throughout the whole body. And then with the manual lymphatic drainage, our lymphatic systems are working. You would know within 24 hours if your lymphatic system was not working. It clears liters of fluids a day. But what might be happening is with our modern lifestyle, that lymphatic system can get backlogged, burdened. So a lymphatic drainage specialist will help to promote that lymphatic drainage within the body, help you get on top of that drainage, get rid of any of the old stagnant fluid, and that also improves general well-being. Fluid retention, particularly for women, as our hormones fluctuate during the month. Our fluid retention also fluctuates, so particularly helps women that struggle with fluid retention. You would know if you did. You would get to the end of the day and have heavy legs, frequent colds, frequent flu, that kind of thing. And then the two work so well together in that, like, it's overall wellness rather than just one specific area of the body. We're looking at the systemic working of the lymphatic system and then also improving the nervous system through stretching.
Absolutely. I actually use both for different reasons, and that's what actually drew me to your page is I have such a personal connection with both of them. I use a lymphatic to manage my high cortisol levels, and I feel such an amazing, it's almost like a burden off my shoulders when I leave after having a session. It's just, and it helps me sort of maintain between appointments. It's really incredible. Okay, so I want to dive into the first question. Tell us why women's health and wellness is important to you.
So I service both women and men, and a lot of my
Yes.
clients are curious as to like the split of them. It's very much 50-50. But that being said, lymphatic drainage is 99% women. Men don't tend to struggle as much with lymphatic fluid buildup, although some can, but they don't tend to struggle with it as much as women do because of our hormones. Our hormones
okay.
fluctuating does, I mean, these are necessary for our female lifestyles, but it does mean that throughout the month, we are having energy dips and energy peaks. And our everything changes throughout that month. Something else that changes will be when we're having that dip in energy, we might move less, we might breathe a little bit less effectively, and as those hormones fluctuate, we might retain more water. If we are moving less, movement is something that stimulates lymphatic flow naturally. So imagine that you're stuck at a desk all day. The areas that move that lymph are bound up and bottlenecked. So predominantly women in the lymphatic area. And that is, I mean, it's so important to me. I know how the lymphatic affects myself. That's why I'm so passionate about it. I am someone that I can wake up in the morning and my ankles look great, and by the end of the day I can feel this heaviness in my legs. I can feel when I've not had a lymphatic drainage, my digestion slows down, I feel sluggish. So definitely there, I focus on women. And then when it comes to the stretching, it's a strange dynamic because men tend to be tighter than women naturally. Women's bodies, they tend to have a little bit more flexibility, and that allows women to give birth.
Yeah.
Our bones are able to move. When you're pregnant, you actually release a hormone that allows that movement even more. So women are perhaps not as tight as men, but they tend to get restriction focused in areas a little bit more than men. So men tend to have a little bit more of perhaps a sport-related tightness in the hamstrings, in the pelvis, in the lower back. Women tend to come and they feel a tightness in their upper back, shoulders, and neck. And I feel that a lot of that time, metaphorically, that is the world on their shoulders. Women are just juggling so much. They tend to put themselves last on the list of priorities. And it tends to be when things are in crisis mode that they are seeking out help. Men will come to you just because they're feeling a little bit tight. A woman will come to you because they are nearly immobile. So I really want women to be less hard on themselves, to prioritize themselves a little bit more. And then hopefully after a session, just allow those women to sort of feel like, first of all, for an hour or 90 minutes, hand over to me. Don't make any decisions. Don't be thinking about what's for dinner. Just lie down, relax, and let me work out that tension, similar to going for a massage. But just to help those women to, instead of having, like you say, with that high cortisol, it is operating in this high level without recovery. And that cortisol is just pumping all the time. This is just an area of recovery so that you can come back stronger for whatever it is that you have to tackle.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So what does flexibility, tension, and the nervous system have in common? How do they influence each other?
So a lot of people will think if they're feeling tightness in an area of their body, particularly areas that are common might be the lower back and into the pelvis. And a lot of people will think, okay, well, if I'm going to stretch those areas, I will be improving those areas if I make the muscle longer. And that is just not the case. If you were to stretch yourself or if I'm stretching you, we are not actually physically making a muscle longer. We are telling the nervous system that a range beyond what you are used to is still safe and the nervous system can let go. So a lot of the time, tightness is not an accurate representation of what's going on in the body. It can be, again, the nervous system that is in a holding pattern. That could be from a previous injury. Someone may have injured themselves in the past or had chronic pain and modified their movement so that they stay within a parameter that doesn't cause that pain. And then the nervous system will just hold you in that pattern, in this very kind of robotic, linear pattern. A session is trying to not force the joints beyond that range, but rather just to make that nervous system feel safe exploring and just pressing up against those boundaries of what you're used to. And hopefully by doing that, you start to find a little bit more fluidity in your movement rather than this very boxed in movement pattern. So essentially, when we're looking at stretch therapy, everything is about nervous system. It's about making that nervous system feel safe to explore new ranges, and that allows for someone to become more mobile. Flexibility is your passive range, and then mobility is like, could you then take that and marry it with strength and have a mobile body? That's what we want to try and achieve, is that people are flexible and mobile, and that the nervous system is adaptable and ready to take on any movement.
So obviously assisted stretching helps with all of this to get you to that point and sort of help you practice so that you develop all these different parameters.
Okay, perfect. Assisted stretching, you lie down on a massage table. I actually use a stability strap to strap down one of the legs. And then I take the other limb through all types of movement. It's very much a circular flowing choreograph style dance that we do. And that just frees up any kind of restriction in the joint and the muscle.
Okay, so what is a fascial stretch as opposed to what I would do, for instance, after a Pilates class?
So fascia is our connective tissue. That is the term for our connective tissue. So stretching that you would do in a Pilates class or a yoga class or anything like that is fascial stretching. A lot of the time, just for our understanding, we tend to separate muscle, nerve, organ, but in fact, we want to look at it all together, and fascia is something that, for the idea, we separate it, but in fact, anything that you're doing, you will be working the fascia. But when it comes to stretching, fascial stretch therapy, what it aims to do is look at connected chains of that tissue rather than just one tissue. So myself as a fascial stretch therapist, if I'm assessing your body, rather than thinking, oh, this person has a tight hamstring, I want to see how does that hamstring fit within what's called the back line of their body, that connective tissue of fascia that the hamstring sits in throughout the back of the body. And I might feel that, yes, the hamstring is tight when I'm doing a hamstring stretch, but in fact, a lot of the restriction might be coming from the lower back, the middle back. Some people have got a lot of density through the bottoms of their feet, into their Achilles, into the calf. So rather than looking at a muscle in isolation, a fascial stretch therapist will look at chains of connective tissue that the muscle falls in, and that will be along the back of the body, the front of the body, spirals. So how, as you walk, one arm goes forward, the opposite hip goes forward. So we're looking in spirals, and then lateral lines, the side of the body, and functional lines. If you were to throw a ball, it comes from transferring force through various parts of the body. So a fascial stretch therapist will look at and assess the body according to those fascial lines.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. How do we alleviate, you were speaking about the back line, how do we alleviate the front line after sitting for long periods of time, or maybe you've been in a detrimental posture or position for quite a while?
So the front line is so neglected in a lot of people's routine. Apart from perhaps in yoga, yoga focuses a lot on the front line with a lot of back bending, which opens the front. But because our eyes are in front of our body, we prioritize everything forward. Our arms come forward when we are working with screens. Our hands come forward. So it does tend to be that the front of our body does develop a lot of repetitive movement restriction because we're in that position more often. And then emotionally, for us to protect what is most important, we also curl in on ourselves. We might bare our back. So to open up that front line, it's any type of backward bending. So anything that, if you think of sitting over your computer for many hours of the day, it almost feels instinctive, or first thing in the morning to kind of lift up and
Stretch.
stretch. You want to open your chest. Anything that's going to expand the chest, taking the arms backwards. Anything that's going to take your leg behind you. So coming into any kind of lunging position where one leg is moving back behind you, that's going to stretch out the front line. Lying over something, you know, you could put a few cushions on the ground and lie face up over those cushions. Anything like that is going to open up that front line. And it's amazing how much tension that we feel in our back. And we might think that we've got tension in the back. It's actually your back fatiguing from fighting against that front that's compressing you all the time. You've got to think of how hard your back is having to work to keep fighting that tension in the front. So opening up that front line, beneficial for everyone. Anything that's also going to take your head backwards.
Yeah. Wow. And also maybe those mobility balls like that you can sort of arch over. Yeah.
Definitely. Pilates ball, Swiss ball, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, yes.
Lie over it, or those little small balls that you might use in a Pilates class.
Yeah.
Going over that, a foam roller across your back, all of it beneficial.
Amazing. Okay, so let's chat about expectations, because we live in a world where quick fixes and instant relief is something we all sort of seek, but I'm sure consistency and practice comes into stretching therapy.
Definitely. I think all therapists, body workers, they suffer from the same thing where clients have an expectation that they might come in. I mean, it sounds silly when I describe it now because obviously a client wouldn't expect this, but there is an expectation that someone will come in feeling one way and leave feeling completely different. And that maybe we've flicked a switch and fixed you and you can be on your way and not stretch for a long time. But like anything, consistency is key. If you're looking to be healthier, you would have to have consistency in your diet, in your sleep, in your lifestyle, and the same it is with stretching. That is an unrealistic expectation. The same as you might shower and you get clean. You're going to get dirty again. You're going to shower again. Anything in life, you've got to eat clean. You've got to sleep well consistently. One night of good sleep isn't going to fix you. The same with stretching. That's not to say that one session doesn't make a big difference. Clients will feel much different after a session, but whatever led them there is going to reoccur. So we want to stay ahead of that tightness. We say to clients, make sure that you come back before you've reached the point that got you there in the first place. And for some people, that is once a week. Most people twice a month is a good schedule to stick on, but even once a month is beneficial. But realizing that if you come once a month, if you're not doing some kind of supplementary stretching at home, it's not going to make huge differences. So definitely give it a try once, see how your body responds, get feedback from a therapist. Some people are more flexible than they think. So then they perhaps only need a maintenance of once a month. But a lot of people find it hard to gauge their own flexibility. They don't know quite what they're dealing with. So it can give them some targeted homework stretches.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I wanted to chat to you about the difference between visiting a stretch therapist as opposed to maybe a chiro or a physio. What is the difference, and sort of what scenario would you choose to go to each one?
So in general, you would go to a chiro or a physio if you have a like a specific, perhaps an injury or some kind of niggle that might be happening in your body. And in general, the chiro physio will focus the session on that area. And look for improvement in that particular area. Whereas a stretch therapist, although you perhaps come in complaining of a tight lower back, the session is not necessarily focused around the lower back. It is far more holistic because of this understanding that what you're feeling in your lower back might not be accurate to what's going on in your body. It might just be the feedback that your body is giving for an area of tightness or restriction somewhere else. So despite someone coming in and saying, okay, well, it's my lower back, we would still do, in a shorter session, in an hour session, we would still address the entire lower body, front and back, to see what might be feeding into that lower back. And in a longer session, a 90-minute session, we would still address the entire body, head to toe, front and back. So that would be the biggest difference. I would try to encourage people to come for a stretch session, not only when they are injured. It's difficult to address things when it's that far. And I would actually encourage people that in that instance, with an injury, do go and see a physio or chiro as your first point of call. They are the ones that are able to diagnose. A stretch therapist is not qualified to diagnose injury. We are only supplementary to those other practices in trying to rehab an injury, but we're very much guided by those professionals. But if you're looking to prevent injury, that's where you want to come in and look at the bigger picture, stay in front of any injury if you can.
Yes, it's a prevention strategy, and you have like a maintenance plan. I call it my maintenance plan.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, perfect. So now, a very interesting question, but why is stretch therapy particularly beneficial during winter?
A lot of people in winter, especially the South African winter, or perhaps just the Joburg winter, we hibernate. We are not built for winter. We are enduring winter and waiting for that springtime. Maybe this is just personal. I endure winter and I'm waiting for springtime. Our homes tend to be quite cold. We're not set up for a South African winter. And what tends to happen is that we close in on ourselves. So where we might not be expressing full movement, might still be going to the gym, we might still be doing our usual wellness routine, but perhaps not exploring the full movement because of this tendency to huddle in on ourselves. I always feeling like it's in winter that my body would benefit the most because I tend to curl in on myself. So in winter, in summer, we heat the table with an electric blanket, but in winter, we pay more attention to heating our environment so that the muscles are nice and warm while we're working with them. And that's, again, it is just to try to break out of that hibernation phase that we tend to go through during winter so that there's not that big kickstart having to happen in spring. You've already been maintaining throughout winter.
I think I actually remember one of my Pilates instructors telling me that people are far more injured in winter because they're not doing enough warm-up. And so that makes sense with what you're saying now. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there seems to be, I don't know if this is true, I want to ask your opinion, but there seems to be a definite mental or psychological component to stretching as well, and maybe with women, the way that we tense everything up in specific areas. Am I wrong in thinking this? Is there something to that?
It's difficult to generalize because everyone is so unique, but certainly if I think of, and this is not specific to women, but let's say, for instance, a very tall person, they are living in a world that is perhaps not tailor-made for them. So they are constantly lowering their bodies. Perhaps it is because of countertops or desks or anything that is made for the average population. I can stretch them. I can give them homework stretches, and that will work if that person has got the type of personality that is extroverted, confident. They stand upright, and you just unlock a little bit of that tension and they'll blossom out of that. If we've got someone who is emotionally shy and they are perhaps a little bit more reserved, and that might be the case with women more so than men, and there are always exceptions, but someone who is more, women on the whole are more used to the narrative of making themselves small. We could do any amount of stretching, any amount of homework, exercise, and they will still revert to the emotional pattern of making themselves small. That tall person might revert to the emotional pattern of making themselves small. So definitely that's where the psychological element comes in, is to try to break emotional patterns. I will have stretched someone, and in the instant they finish their session, they'll be standing tall, they'll pick up their phone, and they'll see the list of emails or messages, and instantly this happens. The shoulders go right up, so you can never separate the emotion. It's just to try to break those patterns. I'll just sort of say, watch what happened to your shoulders the instant you picked up your phone. Perhaps you could leave your phone for half an hour after a session. I mean, everyone just has to do what they can do. But that emotional component, you can't take it away from what you're dealing with in the body.
Absolutely. Okay, perfect. And the last question is, does stretch therapy focus on different areas according to stress or age of the patient, or do you always follow a holistic approach to everyone, regardless of sex or age?
Holistic, but we're always treating the body in front of us. So rather than there being a set recipe for everyone,
yes,
that's what comes with experience, is that I might do the same moves on two different people, but I'll execute them based on what that person needs. And that will alter in terms of how hard I'm going to push, how fast I'm going to move. I have my oldest client, 95 years old. I'm not going to stretch that client. I'm just going to move that client. We're just keeping things moving. We're just keeping joints lubricated. Where he tends to shuffle a little bit, his eyesight has gone a little bit, so he tends to shuffle his feet a little bit, feeling perhaps unsteady on his feet. On a massage table with the strap stabilizing him, I can really move his body in all types of ranges that he's not used to. My youngest, she's been with me a few years. She started when she was 8. She's representing South Africa in tennis, so much younger. And because her body is still developing, I'll treat her much differently to anyone else. So you are adapting according to who it is that you've got. And then again, because you're working with the nervous system, you might feel as the therapist that you haven't reached end range, but you can feel their nervous system telling you,
yes,
I'm not comfortable to go beyond this. You never want to break that trust. If you break that trust with one rep, it will seize up before you've even tried the next one. So you're working with that nervous system all the time. The sessions are completely relaxing. People will often arrive at a session, first timers, expecting a torture session, necessary for me to like feel more mobile. They fall asleep. They can't believe that they're going to fall asleep in a session, but it is so relaxing because we're working with the nervous system. We want that body to relax and accept the new range as safe. So,
Yes.
yeah, definitely always adapting to whoever it is. And then as those people progress, adapting still. I had a gentleman here earlier who had had spinal surgery 5 months ago. When I first started treating him, gentle movement, just not even pushing against any boundary. Now, 5 months later, we can push. He's ready for it. We actually have to break through a little bit of that scar tissue. So I'm always adapting.
Amazing. So it's a very unique experience, actually. It's so based on the individual's body, their nervous system. Yeah, that's amazing. Very, very interesting.
Definitely.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to ask you, are there any upcoming events or collabs or anything new that we can sort of make sure to keep tabs on?
There aren't any collabs, but something that is exciting, when myself and my business partner Adele first trained in fascial stretch therapy, we had to go overseas to train, and we were actually the only two fascial stretch therapists in Africa.
Oh, amazing.
That was 7 years ago, and during those 7 years, people have reached out to say that they would like to train in this modality, and we always referred them to the people who trained us overseas. But we've actually developed our own training now. We feel that we finally have that wealth of experience. We've modified everything that we learned to suit our bodies. So we try to teach this in a way that it will offer therapists longevity. The biggest thing that physios, chiros, massage therapists, they start to leave the industry because of damage to their hands. A lot of repetitive strain happens. The same thing for hairdressers and chefs. We're not the only ones, but repetitive movement with your hands is not ideal. So we're teaching courses where you're using your hands as little as possible, and you're actually using your body as leverage to move your clients. So we started teaching last year. We've done 3 courses already, and we'll be hosting our next course in March of this year. And that's open to movement and physical professionals, physios, personal trainers. So it's exciting for people to have more access to a stretch therapist near them, rather than it just being the two of us. We couldn't service enough people. Hopefully now the word will spread, and there'll be more therapists for more people to go and have that regular stretch session.
I think it would be amazing if Pilates and yoga studios had sent some of their instructors to come and do workshops like that. It would be so beneficial.
Definitely a lot of the interest is from personal trainers, Pilates and yoga. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if someone is wanting to get hold of you, I know I chatted to you through your Instagram, Stretch Therapy SA. Where else can people get hold of you? Is there a website? There's an email?
Yeah. So the website is stretchtherapy.coza. The Instagram, Stretch Therapy SA. Those are the 2 best channels to get hold of me, and they'll find other contact details there, my email address, my cell number for WhatsApp. But those are the best to see a video. A lot of people can try and understand what an assisted stretch session looks like, but the best way is to see it online, just to see that dynamic movement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such an incredible chat. So insightful, and definitely something that I think we all would benefit from.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks. It's been great chatting to you as well.